What's up, FA Nation? Welcome to the DFS live stream for Thursday, or alternatively, if you want, we could just argue
What's
about
up,
the Baseball
FA
Hall
Nation?
of Fame
Welcome
to the DFS. That's what we were doing before we came on the air. I'm Steve Pimental, joined by James Grande. James, how you doing today?
Good, man. Happy that baseball is back, which kind of sparked our little tiff. Me and you were on one side of the argument, while our producer, Matt Sells, was definitely on the other side.
I believe you mean the right side of the argument.
Yes, we are. Yes, we were definitely on the right side of the argument, yes.
And speaking of being on the right side, let's get you on the right side of some DFS lineups for the NBA. We've got I actually don't remember how many games we have today. I should have written that down. 8 games slate. Thank you for that. So 8 games today, a decent amount of injury news, but not quite as much as I think we've been used to the last week or two, which is kind of nice. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard out is the big one. OG Anunoby doubtful, so we're
just officially ruled out as of
perfect.
33 seconds ago. Officially ruled out.
Okay, so we'll definitely, when we get to small forwards, have some things to say about that. Josh Richardson out, Justice Winslow questionable, unless that's changed in the last 20 seconds.
He is also out, officially out.
Kevin Knox questionable, Mike Scott questionable. Those were, as far as I could see, the real big changes today. And then as far as the lines, also kind of different than what we've been used to lately. 3 lines of 230 plus. We've got Sacramento minus 4.5 at New Orleans, Clippers at Milwaukee minus 9. So Sacramento, New Orleans, 236.5, LA, Milwaukee, 234, and then Brooklyn at Philadelphia, minus 7.5, 232.5 total. And then 2 games that are under a 210 total, Dallas at Miami and Orlando at Detroit is 208.5, 206.5. So, more of a disparity. I mean, it seems like this time of year scoring's up across the board, but then you get 2 real low totals for, borderline playoff teams. So anything stick out to you from those totals?
Unfortunately, at least from a strategy standpoint, I usually like to cross those kind of games off of my list on these kind of bigger slates. But Miami has some really juicy pieces considering all the injuries they're dealing with. So I think, unfortunately for us, 8 games and 100,000 players are in our player pool. But yeah, we have some interesting totals. Unfortunately, we have some very large spreads as well on this slate, and one including the late night hammer. So it's going to be an interesting slate for sure.
Absolutely. And before we get to that, I just want to tell you today's live stream is brought to you by Opening Day. Opening Day is finally here, obviously. Hopefully you've been watching baseball. Maybe you have it on in the background while you listen to us. And if you want the edge for your seasonal fantasy baseball league and to dominate daily fantasy baseball, I mean, we were talking about before we went on that MLB DFS is very difficult, and you really need some help to navigate who you're going to play and when to play Mike Trout, because we're always on the wrong foot with him. And so that's why the MLB Playbook Pro is for you, because you get expert analysis, customizable tools, playbooks, example lineups, ownership percentages, lineup generator, all that stuff. And you really need it all if you're going to succeed in MLB. And you get our analysis to break it down for you. League Sync tool for seasonal, and all of that, you can go to fantasyalarm.com/MLB season to save instantly. You get a $200 package for just $75, and you don't get that kind of savings all the time. So definitely jump on that on our opening day special. And again, that's for the whole season. So fantasyalarm.com/MLB season to dominate fantasy baseball.
Yeah, and if you are an MLB DFS player, I mean, you've probably read Howard Bender's playbook today, but just some names that were there today. Luke Voigt, 3-run home run, got on base 3 times today. Javi Baez was in his playbook and all his lineups, was in his the Heart of the Order video, and Justin Verlander, who's currently at 30 DK points, which is very hard to accomplish. So, I mean, just, starting us off pretty hot. Shout out to Howard for that. But, I mean, you're going to win your money back very fast. And and you're already getting a massive discount. So please take advantage of that for the rest of the year.
Absolutely. So let's try to win the people some money in NBA today. Before we get to the positions, I do have a question. The top three, and I believe they're all in your playbook. The three high-priced players I think that we're going to have to choose between are Giannis, James Harden, and Joel Embiid. So if you have to pick one, who's it going to be? And then go ahead and rank the three of them.
If I were picking just one, it would be Embiid. And I am tired of missing out on Brooklyn or centers against Brooklyn. It's something that John and I and yourself have kind of put on a pedestal. It's like there are certain things that we attack, there are certain spots we attack, and it's always been Brooklyn centers. I mean, we just saw JaVale McGee go for maybe his best statistical game of his career last week against Brooklyn centers. There should be no difference. I mean, there is a clear difference because Joel Embiid is much more talented than JaVale McGee. So there is tremendous upside. I would pick Embiid if I had to pick one. And ranking them, I would go Embiid, Giannis, Harden. But it's not to say I don't like Harden. I just prefer the other two slightly to him.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think I'd have that same order, too. And then my other question, specifically about the point guards, because as you talked about in the podcast last night and kind of mentioned the playbook, there are roughly 46 viable point guards for DFS today. So with that in mind, is there anyone you're actively targeting, or would you prefer to kind of play Joel Embiid, fill in other positions, and then kind of see what you have to spend on point guard? What's your strategy there?
So I think today specifically, there's a couple guys that we love to target, specifically from the Raptors when Kawhi Leonard is out. Pascal Siakam is one, Kyle Lowry's two, Fred VanVleet is three. Normally, Fred VanVleet is the guy who starts. They'll shift, VanVleet to the shooting guard. They'll move Danny Green to small forward, and they'll start them that way. VanVleet is very cheap, gets a really, really good matchup against the Knicks. So, if there was one point guard that I was, really interested in for cash games for tournaments, it would be him. Generally, I would probably say Kyle Lowry, considering his price tag is super nice, under 7K over on DraftKings. It's just the minutes have been down, and I'm not sure they want to push him considering, he's, I'm not going to say advanced in age, but in terms of an athlete, I guess you could say he's advanced in age. He just turned 34, wear and tear. Maybe they want him to be fresh as possible for the playoffs. I mean, he hasn't hit 30 minutes in 3 straight games, and I think that's something worth noting. So I think VanVleet is the one guy I am targeting in all formats at point guard. But the rest of the position, I mean, there's guys from the top to the bottom. I mean, Ben Simmons is a really strong play. He's had really good success against Brooklyn this year. De'Aaron Fox has a really, really good matchup against the Pelicans. The Pelicans literally play no defense. I mean, you could really say across the board, but we've been specifically targeting them, point guard, shooting guard, small forward. Really just the perimeter players have really destroyed New Orleans this year. And on the flip side, Elfrid Payton, there's no Frank Jackson. He is probable to play. We've seen crazier things happen where people have been ruled out. Mainly it's been Anthony Davis from that team, so I expect him to play, and I expect him to play a lot of minutes. And when we saw him play 30-plus minutes just 2 weeks ago, he was getting a triple-double nightly. So, I mean, there's a lot of different routes to go, and I even mentioned half the guys below 6K. There's a bunch of them, too. So, I mean, it's a really wide open position. I think VanVleet is the one guy that we should specifically target for cash games and for tournaments as well.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, I'm with you in general. With so many viable players, I tend to kind of fill that position in last. But VanVleet, just with the way he's playing, and with Kawhi and OG out, I definitely could see that. I mean, if I had to pick one guy, I think it might be Elfrid Payton. I mean, the only concern I think is the playing time, but I don't think we expect a restriction. And he was great in just 25 minutes his last time out. So if he gets 30, 35, that's the guy I'm really targeting. You alluded to some of the cheaper point guard plays. Who are those guys you're looking at?
I mean, Colin Sexton continues to just kind of be overlooked in DFS, and that's kind of silly because he's scoring. Like, yes, he doesn't give us a ton of peripheral stats. He's not a big passer. He's not a great rebounder. But in March, he's averaged 22.4 actual points per game. Yes, that game is considerably. There's a great chance that that game blows out. It's in San Antonio. There's a double-digit spread there. Do I think it's going to stay close? No, but Colin Sexton plays minutes regardless. He's going to play 35 minutes. We've seen that as long as Matthew Dellavedova has been off the floor, Colin Sexton plays 35 minutes. There's no Dellavedova. We can basically pencil Sexton in for 35 minutes. Then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be without Patrick Beverley, who was ruled out. Now, Landry Shamet's playing, but that doesn't really impact Gilgeous-Alexander. They'll run Gilgeous-Alexander and they'll run Lou Williams, basically, as the 2-point guards tonight. Gilgeous-Alexander's been playing 30 minutes nightly, and this is no coincidence because the Clippers are one of the hottest teams in the NBA, currently at the 5 seed. They've moved up. Some people thought they weren't even going to make the playoffs. Here they are in the 5 seed, clinched a playoff berth. Gilgeous-Alexander, 30-plus minutes. He let us down the last time we touted him, just their last game. But having biases in DFS is never a good idea, no matter how badly they sucked or hurt your lineups or what if this guy did well, I could have won this amount of money. It's not a good idea to have the bias. And without Patrick Beverley, he's going to see all of the minutes he can handle in a playoff type of atmosphere against the Bucks, who, currently kind of control their own destiny in the East. Like, they have home court. They're going to have home court advantage throughout, yada, yada, yada. So Gilgeous-Alexander and Colin Sexton would be like the two spend downs. And I'll even throw Goran Dragic in there as more of a contrarian GPP play because there's no Josh Richardson and there's no Josh Richardson and Justice Winslow. I think there's some merit to playing Goran Dragic. Both those guys can handle the ball. Now, do I think Dwyane Wade is like the better play of the two? Sure. But I think Dragic, we've seen him a couple times since coming back from injury, really explode, really shoulder the offensive burden, and I think he could do that tonight.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, DFS players really need to be like closers. We have to have short memories, Right. I mean, nothing's worse than feeling like you're on the wrong foot with a guy, especially if it happens more than a few times. And and Gilgeous-Alexander's that one, has been one of those guys for me, and for that reason, I'm usually more apt to play him in a GPP than a cash. And something like that I think is kind of reasonable. But like you said, we have to, forget what happened last time out and kind of, put those blinders on. Well, and with that in mind, I think we can probably move ahead to shooting guard.
Yep.
We already mentioned James Harden, obviously on your playbook, but not the top play among the most high-priced guys, but going down the position, I know there are a few guys towards the top that are obviously a lot cheaper than Harden that made your playbook that you're interested in. So how would you rank D'Angelo Russell, Luka Doncic, and Lou Williams?
That's a tough one. On DraftKings, I think Luka would be first for me, considering he's only 8'4", considering he has back-to-back triple-doubles, and we get the bonus. We get the double-double bonus. We get the triple-double bonus. And he's clearly gunning for the Rookie of the Year. He knows Trae Young's on his heels. He wants that hardware. He does. He wants it. He looks good. I mean, he's been dealing with knee ailments, but it doesn't really seem to be impacting him too much. 8,400 is too cheap. If I had to rank them, I would probably, on DraftKings, Doncic, Russell, because Russell's in all-worldly type of mode right now, video game mode, so to speak, 50 fantasy points or more in 4 straight games. And then I would probably go Lou Williams. On FanDuel, I don't really want to pay the price tag for Luka or Russell. I would probably lean Lou Williams slightly more over there. Again, there's no Patrick Beverley. We don't know how many minutes Landry Shamet's actually going to play. And their other guard in the rotation is Garrett Temple. So, Lou Williams is going to be on the floor for extended run. It's been very nice to see him play 30 plus minutes in a couple straight games because the minutes have always been where we're really like, why isn't Lou Williams playing 35? Why isn't he playing 30? Just 30 in general. So I think over on FanDuel, I would actually rank Lou Williams first ahead of the other two. On DraftKings, I love Luka Doncic.
Yeah, that's one of those things. And I know you and I sometimes when we're not writing the playbook, we might lean towards one, only playing one side as opposed to the other. And that's one of the reasons why it's so valuable, I think, to look at both sites and get an idea. Because you look at DraftKings and you think, oh yeah, Lou Williams, he's a little bit cheaper than those other guys, which probably sounds right, but he's in the same neighborhood. And then DraftKings, It's just the discount you get is way too much to pass up. Other shooting guards we're interested in, Buddy Hield. He's another guy kind of like Landry Shamet, who's almost only a GPP play for me. But it's been a few games since he went off for 40. But I mean, he's just such a streaky shooter. If he shoots 60%, he's going to score 40 fantasy points, and he can do that pretty much any time out. The shooting guard that I think is going to be almost impossible to get away from, especially for cash, is Dwyane Wade. You agree?
100%. He's actually currently, he was the first guy put in every one of my lineups. I mean, 40 fantasy points in back-to-back games. We have Dwyane Wade, unfortunately, for like 7 more games and before he hangs up the jersey and the shoes and everything. And his team is only half a game out of the playoffs. So it's like, couple that with the fact that we mentioned Josh Richardson and Winslow are both out. Like, it's the Wade show tonight. And he gets a really bad Dallas defense. So everything points to Wade. I like him for all formats. I think you play him in cash. There's GPP upside considering he's gone for 40 in 3 of his last 5. Like, he was the first guy in my lineups, and I don't even care. Like, he has been so good. He's been so worth it. I think you would be foolish almost in a sense to not get shares of Dwyane Wade tonight, considering all the injuries they have, considering what's on the line for them this season. I completely agree with you, Steve. I think Dwyane Wade's the real deal tonight.
Yeah, and we still have his ownership at only 2%. I think that was before the Justice Winslow news.
Definitely.
But I still, it might not, like at first I was thinking he was going to be in everyone's lineups, but I don't know. I don't always have the pulse of what everyone else is thinking, which I guess is probably a good thing for DFS. But,
yeah.
His ownership might not get insane, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Who do you like below Dwyane Wade as far as, shooting guards?
It's not like the deepest position. Like in the playbook up top, I put Garrett Temple. Like, he could be okay. Again, he started the other day. He played really well. He got his 30 fantasy points. But Shamet and then Beverly left the game. Or Beverly wasn't active. So, like, we had 2 really key pieces not there. Now Shamet's going to play. And Doc Rivers has been starting Landry Shamet. So, I don't know how many minutes that really gives Temple. But he could be, like, a really deep dive. I think Ian Clark is going to be a really popular value tier play tonight. Because if Elfrid Payton, for whatever reason, is limited, or even if he's not, I mean, Clark is the backup point guard and the backup shooting guard tonight. And, I mean, he might actually start with no Frank Jackson. We're just unsure of the Pelicans' official starting lineup. So if Clark starts, he's an elite play all formats. If he doesn't, he's still an elite tournament play because he's still going to play a lot of minutes. And, the Pelicans are so bad, if they get blown out, Clark's going to play the blowout run anyway. So I like him, and I actually like Bogdan Bogdanovic quite a bit tonight. He's finally getting back into the Kings rotation. There was no reason for him not to be in the rotation. He was struggling, sure, but there's like what good does it do your franchise if you're the Kings to play Nemanja Bjelica and not to play guys like Bagley and not to play guys like Bogdanovic? Like, it doesn't actually make a bit of sense. So I'm happy they're playing Bogdanovic about 29 minutes a game over his last 2, and I'd really like him. I don't mind him for cash, but if Ian Clark is starting, then Ian Clark instantly becomes the cash game guy, and Bogdanovic becomes the GPP play for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just a couple more shooting guards that are
Ian
pretty
Clark
cheap.
officially starting, by the way.
Okay, there you go.
And Anthony Davis just ruled out.
Well, that is interesting. That's going to have implications for the next few positions for sure. And
Correct.
I don't even know why I put Anthony Davis on my list. I think, oh, well, he's probable. He could be a cash play.
Never.
Why do I even bother?
Never. It's never. I try to tell John this, Steve, almost and yes, John was right for quite a while. He actually had a pretty good go for a little bit, but like there's always a chance that Anthony Davis is ruled out. And here it is. The proof is in the pudding. Probable. Yeah. Half an hour before lock, out. It's just, wow. Why trust a guy that doesn't want to be there? Why trust him? He doesn't want to be there. And it's just, if it's a topic that I get really heated about, so we don't need to talk about it much because he's being paid millions of dollars and he's acting like a child, but we can move on from there.
Did just want to say Pat Connaughton, I think for cash, he's been real solid with the injuries that they've had. And Dwyane Wade, again, another injury play. At least 26 minutes, 5 straight games, at least 27 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. So those are the last 2 shooting guards. Moving on to small forward, I just want to jump in because we both love this guy, Norman Powell. Is he a must play with OG out, or are you still leaning more towards GPP? What are your thoughts with him?
Norman Powell is always a guy that I think is going to play time, like get minutes, and then he doesn't. He did get a lot of time the last game, which I think is really encouraging. And now there's no OG Anunoby. The Toronto Raptors are just weird though. Like they've started freaking I'm blanking, the Patrick McCaw in the past over Norman Powell and played McCaw 28 minutes and Powell has played 18. So do I think Powell is a must? No. Do I think he's a really strong play coming off the bench? Sure, because this game could get out of hand and then Norman Powell's playing in the blowout anyway. So like I don't know if he's a must. That's tough. I think I think he's a secondary cash play. Like if that's how your builds take you, like right. Okay, so Derrick Jones Jr. and Norman Powell are basically the same price across the industry, right? They play the same position. One's been starting lately and one hasn't. Obviously, Norman Powell is not going to start ever because Kawhi's there.
Right.
I guess if Norman Powell, like if they came out and were like, all right, Fred VanVleet's the one coming off the bench, Norman Powell's the one starting. Then I think we talk about Norman Powell being a cash play or like a core play. I still think he's a cash play. I don't call him a core play as of now. I'd rather Derrick Jones Jr. starting, no Winslow, no Richardson. He's going to play all the minutes he can handle. So I lean Jones Jr. as of now. If Powell were to start, then I would probably go that way.
Yeah, and I think Powell I probably like slightly better on FanDuel too, just because it takes a little bit of that risk out, and he's cheap enough that he really is pretty much just a pure pump play there. Going back to the top, we mentioned Giannis again. We both really like him. I mean, if it weren't for Joel Embiid, I think we'd both full-throatedly endorse Giannis, and he was great in the first game against the Clippers, if I remember correctly.
Dominated the Clippers.
The other issue with small forward is that small forward the last probably month has been super thin on FanDuel anyway. And then you get all the injuries, Richardson, Justice Winslow, Kawhi all out. So, it's even more of a reason I think to consider someone like Norman Powell, but there are more expensive guys that we like. So why don't you talk about some of those?
Yeah, I mean, Danilo Gallinari, you literally just look at his box score. If you don't watch any of the games, there is like nobody more consistent right now. It's 35 plus fantasy points every night. We just saw a ceiling of 50 out of him the last game. I love him in this spot. He never gets any love. Again, 5% projection on one site, 9% on the other. Like, why not just take your 40 points and move on? Like Danilo Gallinari, solid play. Rudy Gay is interesting to me. the minutes are always a concern. 32 the last game, gets us 32 fantasy points. His price tag's pretty low. I really like DeMarre Carroll. He started recently. Alan Crabb continues to be out. That means DeMarre Carroll started. He started and played over 30 minutes in 3 of the last 4 games, and he's been scoring the basketball, 15 or more actual points in 3 of those last 4 games. So I really like DeMarre Carroll. Other than that, it's a really bad position. Like, I liked Mario Hezonja. Kevin Knox is going to play. Small forward stinks, man, and it's unfortunate, but it kind of is what it is. I think Norm and Derrick Jones Jr. are the other plays, and then thankfully on DraftKings you can play guys from shooting guard to power forward at small forward.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, let's move on to small forward. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think we love this spot against Cleveland, but the spread last I saw was -12. Are you still going there? Do you just go down to Julius Randle now that Anthony Davis is out? What do you think?
I mean, I think you just play Aldridge in tournaments, and now you just play Randle wherever you want to play him because he's going to start. He has a 1.6 fantasy point per minute output without Anthony Davis. Like, has Randle been the guy? No, but it doesn't matter right now. He just hasn't been. So he got the 75-point game, then we got a 9, and then we got a 42. So we've touched every level of production. I think he's more in the 42 range. I think he has a ceiling higher than that. 8,200 is a fine price tag. And again, the Kings are a team that I have been pounding. I've been hounding everyone to play like centers and power forwards against because they don't defend big men. I think this is a smash spot for Julius Randle. I like him over Aldridge. You can obviously pivot to Aldridge in tournaments, but I definitely prefer Randle with the news that Anthony Davis is going to sit.
Yeah. Another tournament play, at least in my mind, is Kevin Love. He hasn't been shooting the ball well, but I don't think we expect that to last for too long. And then the other, Pascal Siakam, I think is obvious. We almost don't have to talk about it right now. The 2 guys I do want you to talk about is Marvin Bagley had been great and then completely face planted against Dallas. I don't think either of us are going to say not to play him in GPP. The only question is, can you trust him in cash? And with that in mind, should we bother with him in cash when we can just play Paul Millsap for 300 less on FanDuel?
Yeah, I'm not playing him in cash, especially considering it was a close game against Dallas, a very competitive close game at that. A game there where over 150 or almost 250 points were scored. And he only played 24 minutes. And it goes back to why are they not playing him and why are they playing Nemanja Bjelica? It doesn't make sense to me. I think he's fine for tournaments. Again, it's not a bad matchup. Now we get Julius Randle, Check Diallo, and potentially Jahlil Okafor defense because Okafor is starting tonight. So, do I think Bagley's a strong tournament play? Yes. I'm not playing him in cash. I think you're right. Spot on. Paul Millsap, excellent cash game play. He's playing all the minutes he can handle. Plus, they're going for this number 1 seed. They're half a game back. They're the best home team in basketball. If you're telling me that they don't want to win this Western Conference outright, you're out of your mind. That's their only chance of defeating Golden State if they have 4 home games in a series. That's their only chance. They're a really good team. They're not beating the Warriors. I don't think they'd beat them anyway, but their only chance would be with the 4 games or at home. So I think they're just going to ride Millsap into the sunset, as many minutes as he can handle. And not to mention the Rockets are right on their tail too. So they want to win because they don't want to get passed by the Rockets. And then let's say they have to face them in the playoffs and they have to go to Houston for 4 games. So I like Millsap for cash. I like Millsap for tournaments too, but Bagley's a tournament pivot off of the Millsap cash gameplay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. We mentioned cheap guys at other positions we like, and obviously we really like the guys at the top of the power forward position. Is there any reason to go significantly cheaper?
No, I don't like this tier at power forward. I guess check Diallo, but again, he let everyone down the other night. So, like, you can do it. Do you want to? I don't know. I'm going to throw Christian Wood out there because Christian Wood had, like, the game of his life. And I'm just saying, Anthony Davis isn't playing again. And although Jahlil Okafor is starting, how many minutes are we going to get out of Jahlil Okafor? This kind of just opened the door for Christian Wood. And is it point chasing? Maybe. But with no Anthony Davis and Jahlil Okafor starting, there might be an actual path to playing Christian Wood, considering he just went for 53 fantasy points. Now, does he get to block 6 shots again? No.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is, a lot of times, and I think I'm guilty of this too, especially in the playbook, you're listing all these guys, and the only thing we really care about is fantasy points. But at some level, you should probably look at how they get those fantasy points, because, like if they're taking 20 shots, that might be sustainable. Blocking 6 shots, not as sustainable.
Right, and it makes me, like, I want to play him because even if he didn't, like, let's take away the blocks and the 3 steals. Like, let's just take that away. He scored 23 points and grabbed 9 rebounds. So, like, he was min salary. So for the 1% or the 0.1% that played him, like, pat yourself on the back. You probably won a lot of money because of it. He's only $4,100 on DraftKings, and it's, again, there is a path to playing him tonight. And even if it was no blocks, no steals tonight, and he got us 20 points and 9 rebounds, he still crushes value at 4-1. So I do think he is worth considering. Tournament play only. If he were starting, it'd be a whole different case. It'd be a whole different case considering what we saw him do because it's Sacramento. But it's Sacramento. We saw him dominate last game. I think there's merit to playing him in a tournament. Whatever. Christian Wood, do I think he's going to score 50 again? No, but I do think he would be the one, like, I knock my headphones out. He'd be the one, like, low-tier play I would consider.
Yeah, I totally agree. Moving on to center, I think the most interesting question at center is, do you have to play Nikola Vucevic at 8,500 on DraftKings? He's been solid against Detroit, but not great. I think there are a lot of DFS players that see him at that price and think he's never that cheap. How do I pass him up? But I don't know, but I think I'm tempted to pass him up. What do you think?
I mean, the only reason he's not a must play is because we have Joel Embiid at 10-4 against the Brooklyn Nets. And then we have guys in the mid-tier like Clint Capella at 7-1 who has really good success against Nikola Jokic in the past. We have Brook Lopez. Center's not a great position. I really don't like it, and that's why I find myself really just paying for Embiid most of the time or going to Brook Lopez or Clint Capella. Like, I'm really just sitting in that three-man range because I put DeAndre Jordan in the playbook. We just don't know. He might play 30 minutes or Mitchell Robinson might play 30 minutes. I couldn't tell you, even with a crystal ball, I probably couldn't tell you who's going to play 30 minutes if it's going to be Jordan or Robinson. So, like, as much as I love Vucevic as a player and I love the price tag, again, it's fantastic. 8.5K, we've seen him near 10K the last 3 months of the year. I just don't know if I'm going to pay it in a tough matchup where I could just, I'll find the extra dollars and go up and get Joel Embiid, who has, I don't know how much upside, but again, I deemed him my favorite play of the slate. So, that kind of speaks to it because Giannis went for 70 and I'm still picking Embiid. Giannis went for 70 against the Clippers earlier and I'm still picking Embiid over him. So I don't know what that says about his upside, but I don't know. I'm not going Vucevic personally. I'm really just sticking with Capella, Embiid, and Lopez.
Agreed. I think if you go cheaper than that, I like Marc Gasol. I know he's coming off a rough game, but I think we'll see some more minutes. I mean, he put up 28 fantasy points against New York just a week or two ago, and I think that's probably his floor for this game. Below that at center, I mean, this is another position, I mean, you could do Jahlil Okafor if you want. I don't know, anyone else at the bottom. Yeah, exactly.
It's You're right. I think there is some merit to playing Jahlil Okafor just because he's starting, but like, does that really get you excited playing Jahlil Okafor? No. So I mean, I don't want to play anyone in the value tier personally. It's the value tier is not for me tonight.
Absolutely, totally agree. Just a little bit of late breaking news before we jump into subscriber chat. Lou Williams ruled out Thursday, so does that make SGA a must play in all formats? Is there anyone else you really expect to pick up the slack?
I mean, definitely SGA, 100%. Gildas
Is Landry
Alexander.
Shamet? We didn't really talk about
Yeah,
him
I
much.
mean, Landry Shamet and probably Garrett Temple are probably two guys. I mean, Temple's been starting, and now he's going to play 30 minutes. I think they're probably all going to play 30 minutes. I think 30-plus minutes is a realistic expectation for all of them. I would say SGA, Temple for cash are cash plays, and I would put Shamet as a tournament play because we've seen extreme volatility out of him, and plus he's coming off an injury. I don't know. Like, they're all kind of in play in different.
I wonder if that game stays close now. I just don't know how they score without Lou Williams. I
Yeah,
mean, it's Gallinari and SGA and not a whole lot else.
And SGA is not really and you say SGA with Gallinari, but he's not even like a proven scorer. So It's like, it's kind of Gallinari, and I'll throw Montrezl Harrell in there coming off the bench. Like, he could be a GPP dart now. Like, there's more shots to go around in that second unit. With no Lou Williams, but you're right. But at the same time, Steve, people have been down the Clippers all year, and here they are in the 5 seed currently in the West, clinched a playoff berth, and I'm not going to put it past them to keep this game close.
Doc Rivers building his Coach of the Year case one game at a time. Last thing, just wanted to mention, DeMarre Carroll is starting. I know you liked him, but it's good to see that news. And then Fred VanVleet starting as well. So our Norman Powell dreams will have to wait till another day. But on that note, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thanks to Matt Sells for producing and James Grande for letting me drive the bus and hopefully not driving it off a cliff. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Steve. Catch you guys later.